I keep telling you guys, the takeover is here. Caitlin Clark, brand new commercial, fire. Brand new commercial, fire. She is working off the floor. Booked and busy. Y'all keep talking about who's doing this and who's doing that. Nobody doing it bigger than CC right now, man.
Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark both down in Florida at the exact same time. Is this a coincidence or is it more to the story?
Caitlin Clark just dropped another commercial with Dick's Sporting Goods, and the internet is absolutely losing it over her return preparations for next season. Her off-season is somehow busier than when she was actually playing, which has everyone talking about endorsement deals, rest versus grind culture, and whether she's getting ready to dominate even harder. Meanwhile, some people aren't too happy about the continued attention gap. Do you think athletes should prioritize rest or maximize their earning potential during the off-season? Drop your take in the comment. Let's talk about how Caitlin Clark's offseason is turning into its own spectacle, because apparently taking time off isn't really a thing when you're the most marketable player in women's basketball. She just released another commercial, this time for Dick's Sporting Goods, and it's got fans hyped about her return while simultaneously raising questions about whether she's actually getting the rest she needs after the grind of last season. The commercial shows her working out on what appears to be a high school court, probably meant to represent where her journey started, and it's shot beautifully with all the production value you'd expect from a major brand partnership. But here's where things get interesting. This isn't a one-off promotional appearance. This is part of a pattern where Caitlin's off-season is just as packed with obligations as her actual season was. Photo shoots, commercials, brand partnerships, appearances, and promotional commitments are filling up her calendar to the point where people are legitimately wondering when she's supposed to rest and recover. Last season wore her down physically to where she was dealing with an ear injury that affected her performance down the stretch. Everyone said she needed this offseason to properly rehab and come back stronger, but instead it looks like she's just trading games for commercial shoots.
Rehabbing and training. You think she's not getting ready to humiliate these ladies on the floor next year? They got away with one this year. They got away with it this year. It's not going to happen next year.
Angel Reese was just at a Magic's game down in Orlando, Florida. Guess who they was playing? The Indiana Pacers. Rhodafoot.
And if you thought this was going to be a nice, calm off season for her, does not seem to be the case. It does not seem to be the case that is going to be a calm off season off the court, because it genuinely seems like it is. It's equally as busy as last year.
It's not going to happen next year. The irony here is that one of the criticisms of Caitlin last season was that she never stopped working. Stories came out about how she'd be in New York for some promotional event and would bring a trainer with her to work out for hours instead of just taking the day off. That kind of relentless mentality is admirable in some ways because it shows dedication and work ethic, but it's also potentially problematic because rest is just as important as training when it comes to long-term performance and injury prevention. Your body needs time to recover, your mind needs breaks from constant intensity, and burnout is a real thing even for the most driven athletes.
Obviously, it was a massive bummer when Caitlin Clark missed as much of the season as she did. It still feels like a massive bummer. I think that image of her with the towel over her head is entrenched in the minds of many. Just sadness, right? It's like the end of Empire Strikes Back or something. But after that, you need Return of the Jedi. And one thing I've been thinking about and seeing a little bit when it comes to the campaigns that have rolled out around Caitlin are how they could really coincide with the comeback.
It's equally as busy as last year. The 8-month off season in the WNBA is actually a luxury compared to what she had in college. In college, you get maybe 3 or 4 months off and then you're back to it. But the level of competition allows you to coast during non-conference play and work your way into game shape gradually. Iowa could cruise through early season games without Caitlin having to go full intensity every night. But in the pros, there's no coasting. You're facing Rhiannon Howard, full court pressing you in game 2. You're dealing with Natasha Cloud and the Liberty's defensive intensity from day 1. There's no easing into it, which is why that 8-month break should be used to actually recover instead of filling every week with promotional obligations.
Schedule.
Now, we know Caitlin is down in Florida, was down in Florida as well, the golfing event at Cambridge at the Anika.
The commercial itself is well done, showing Caitlin working out in what looks like an authentic gym setting rather than some overly polished studio. The Caitlin's Court branding suggests Dick's Sporting Goods is trying to create a whole narrative around her journey in connection to the game at its grassroots level. That's smart marketing, because it plays into her everyman appeal despite being one of the most talented players in the world. She's not portrayed as some unreachable superstar. She's shown grinding in a regular gym just like kids watching at home might do. But the behind-the-scenes aspect of this raises questions about how much Caitlin is actually prioritizing her physical recovery. She's been visible at fever events, she's doing these commercial shoots, she's maintaining her social media presence, and she's fulfilling all these partnership obligations. That's great for her bank account and her brand, but is it great for her body and her mental health? There's a reason professional athletes in other sports take actual vacations and disappear from the public eye during their off seasons. They understand that recovery isn't just physical, it's mental too. The financial side of this can't be ignored though. Caitlin is making absolutely absurd money from endorsements compared to her WNBA salary. Her Nike deal alone is worth more than she'll make in years of playing professional basketball. So when Dick's Sporting Goods comes calling with another commercial opportunity, it's hard to say no to that check. Her playing career will only last so long, maybe 10 to 15 years if she stays healthy and maintains elite performance. Maximizing earnings during that window makes sense from a business perspective, even if it potentially compromises her on-court performance. The criticism that she needs to be in the gym more is actually backwards at this point. Last season suggested she was in the gym too much, not too little. She was working out constantly, never taking real breaks, and pushing her body beyond what was sustainable for a full season, plus playoff. The stories about bringing trainers to New York for hours-long workouts when she was supposed to be doing promotional appearances show someone who doesn't know how to turn it off. That mentality helped her become great, but it might also be what limits her longevity if she doesn't learn to balance work and recovery. The comparison to her college experience is relevant because at Iowa, she could get away with that approach. The competition level allowed for coasting when necessary, and the shorter season meant she didn't have to sustain peak performance for as long. But the WNBA is a different animal. 34 regular season games plus playoffs against the best players in the world, many of whom are older and more experienced at managing their bodies through a long season. Caitlin's learning that lesson the hard way, and hopefully this offseason is actually giving her time to implement better recovery strategies. The fact that we haven't seen a fully healthy Caitlin Clark since September 2022 is wild when you think about it. That's 14 months ago. The last time fans saw her at full strength was when she was dropping 27-point triple-doubles against the Sparks, or going for 25-9 against Connecticut while nearly willing the Fever to a playoff upset. That version of Caitlin Clark is what everyone's waiting to see again, but it's not going to happen if she doesn't actually rest and let her body heal. The Team USA opportunity coming up is huge because it'll be the first time in almost a year that people get to see her in a competitive 5 versus 5 setting at full health. That's assuming she uses this offseason to get healthy rather than running herself into the ground with promotional obligation. If she shows up to Team USA camp still dealing with lingering issues from last season, that's a problem. But if she actually takes time to recover and shows up at 100%, the basketball world is going to remember why she's been the most talked about player in women's basketball for the last 3 years. The commercial with Dick's Sporting Goods is also interesting from a marketing perspective because it keeps Caitlin relevant during the offseason when the WNBA isn't playing. Most WNBA players disappear from public consciousness between October and May, but Caitlin is maintaining visibility through partnerships like this. That's valuable for her personal brand and for the WNBA as a whole, because it keeps fans engaged in thinking about women's basketball, even when there aren't games to watch. But again, there's a cost to that visibility if it comes at the expense of proper rest and recovery. The wildest part of all this is that Caitlin Clark has probably already exceeded her own wildest dreams in terms of what she's accomplished. UConn didn't recruit her, she wasn't getting Team USA opportunities early in her career, people doubted whether her game would translate to the professional level, and now, she's the most marketable player in women's basketball with endorsement deals that dwarf anyone else's in the league. She's changed the conversation around the WNBA and brought mainstream attention to women's basketball in ways that hadn't happened before. That's already a success story beyond what most athletes achieve, but success creates its own pressure. Now that she's reached this level, there are expectations to maintain it. Brands want her for commercials because she moves product and generates attention. The Fever need her to be their franchise player and keep selling tickets. Fans want to see her dominate and break records. All of those competing interests create a situation where taking time off feels impossible, even though it's necessary. Learning to say no and prioritize her health is going to be one of the biggest challenges of her career. The coaching change with the Fever might actually help with this. New coaches often bring new perspectives on rest and recovery, and if the Fever's new staff understands that Caitlin was overworked last season, they might implement better load management strategy. That could mean fewer minutes during certain stretches of the season, more strategic rest days, and better monitoring of her physical condition throughout the year. Professional sports have gotten much smarter about this stuff in recent years, and hopefully the Fever are paying attention. The reaction to this commercial also shows how invested fans are in Caitlin's success. People aren't just excited about the commercial itself, they're excited about what it represents in terms of her preparation for next season. Fans want to see her come back better than ever, dominate the league, and prove that last year's struggles were just growing pains rather than a ceiling on her potential. That kind of fan investment is valuable, but it also creates pressure that can be overwhelming if not managed properly. Some players in the league are probably watching all this attention and feeling frustrated. Angel Reese put up solid numbers as a rookie and had her own endorsement deals, but the gap between her visibility and Caitlin's is massive. That's just market reality. Caitlin generates more attention, sells more merchandise, and drives more viewership than anyone else in the league. That's not fair necessarily, but it's how sports marketing works. The most marketable players get the most opportunities, and that creates disparities that can breed resentment. The question of whether Caitlin has made enough money to never work again is interesting, but probably premature. Yes, her endorsement deals have made her millions, but lifestyle inflation is real. Taxes take a huge chunk, and $10 million isn't as much as it sounds when you're planning for 50+ years of life after basketball. She's set up well financially, but she's not at never work again money yet, unless she's extremely disciplined with how she manages what she's earned. That's why continuing to maximize earnings during her playing career makes sense, even if it complicates her rest and recovery situation. The broader conversation this raises is about what the WNBA offseason should look like for star players. Should they be grinding year-round to maximize their potential and earning opportunities, or should they be prioritizing rest and recovery to ensure long-term health and performance? The answer is probably somewhere in the middle, but finding that balance is different for every player. What works for a veteran who's been managing their body for 10 years might not work for someone in their second season who's still learning what their body needs. Caitlin Clark's offseason is proving that being the face of women's basketball means the work never really stops, and finding the balance between cashing checks and staying healthy is going to define her career moving forward. If you want to keep up with all the behind-the-scenes stuff happening in women's basketball, hit that like button and subscribe because we're covering everything the mainstream media glosses over.